My dad gave the family business to my golden boy sibling and dubbed me just labor. I quietly quit my job. A few weeks later, their biggest client asked me to be a director. The family business called me in a panic after they lost that contract. Hello, Reddit. My family business always treated my brother like the king and me like the guy who carried his throne. So I finally said, no, not doing that forever. Then I made something better for myself. But of course, they weren't done trying to get me back. Let me start at the beginning before we get there. Dylan Pierce is 29 years old. I work as a specialized field tech for my family's business. I work with massive industrial devices, and even tiny mistakes can cause big difficulties. When I say family, I mean my parents and my older brother Grant. He magically became the future emperor of the place before he could even grow a full beard. I'm the one who knows how to use the equipment, fix the machines, clean up the messes on site, and keep clients from freaking out. Grant's main duty is to hide behind a computer screen and act like he came up with business plan. In any case, our store has been around for a long time. My dad, Howard, founded it before I was born, and he thinks the walls should bow when Grant goes by since he has a degree. But I'm the one who goes out there every day and does the part that no one else wants to learn. It's specialized, hands-on labor that requires a lot of precision. Yet even after months of instruction, most people still do it wrong. But Grant is the smart one. That morning, I was finishing up a huge assignment for our biggest client. If you don't know what you're doing, you may break a lot of equipment and mess up a month's worth of schedule. But for me, it's just another Tuesday. As I pushed the alignment back into place and reset the sensor, Logan Brooks, the client's representative, was standing there observing. Logan finally let out a breath when the machine came up without any problems, like a shutter or warning lights. Man, Dylan, thank you, he murmured, shaking his head. I swear every time this thing breaks, I hope you're the one who shows up. I shrugged. Yeah, well, I like when things work instead of blowing up. It makes the day easier. He laughed, happy. You could tell he liked that someone really knew what they were doing. I put away my tools, hoping that for once the day would end without any problems. And then, precisely on time, Grant Pierce walks in. Perfect timing, which meant that all the hard work was already done. He walks like if he's going to a Nobel Prize ceremony. He hasn't worked at a job site in a long time. He said, "Great," and clapped his hands once. My crew followed my plan to the letter. The result was exactly what we thought it would be. I just stared at him because I didn't remember any plans other than me fixing everything myself while he was presumably inside color-coding email folders. Logan stared at him with a perplexed half-smile, as if he was trying to figure out if Grant was joking or just being himself. But Logan is a professional, so he merely nodded nicely. Grant kept continuing, using huge words like he had eaten a thesaurus for breakfast. This is how streamlined coordination looks. I'll tell top management about the success measures. It's a family business, upper management. Our upper management is like our parents enjoying lunch at the same desk. I sat quiet and leaned on my toolbox as I watched my brother pretend to be the brains behind something he couldn't do, even with a printed instruction manual and subtitles. I liked it most when he pointed to the tools as if he really knew what half of them did. Logan's face said everything when he turned back to me. He was confused, embarrassed, and a little sorry for Grant, but he didn't call him out. He is too polite for that kind of drama. Grant ultimately left, perhaps to tell our dad how his scheme worked. I just sighed and cleaned the tools, I said. Logan inquired quietly, "Does he always do that?" "Only when he's awake," I said. "He can't lift a toolbox, but he's great at lifting credit." Logan laughed, but you could tell he was mentally putting the moment away. People notice more than you think. As I packed the vehicle, I thought about how many times this exact thing had happened over the years. I do the work, Grant gets all the attention, and my parents nod along like he's some kind of genius who can use his words to guide the company through tough times. I could feel something getting tighter in my chest. Not emotional, just that fed-up feeling you get when you see that everyone around you is trying to make the sky look green. And I knew the talk regarding the future of the business would happen shortly. It was like a big, dark cloud loomed sitting above the store. And no matter how many jobs I got or how many clients I kept, I already knew how it would turn out. This part of my life was starting to feel old. And I was beginning to question how much longer I would let them keep me hidden. My dad, Howard, informs me a few days after the major work that he wants to chat about the future. When he says that, it usually means I'm going to hear a speech, not talk to him. In the office, I sit in a cheap foldable chair, and he and Marianne sit in the beautiful ones. Already a perfect setup. Howard clears his throat like he's preparing to read a speech. When I retire, your brother Grant will run the business, Dylan. No setup, no talking, just get right to it. Grant is sitting on the side, acting like he hasn't been waiting for this moment since he was born. He is reclining back and smiling like someone just told him he got an honor he worked hard to get. Howard keeps on going. It makes sense. He is the oldest. He has the diploma. He knows how the company is set up and how it will last in the long run. He likes large words and clipboards. Marianne uses the voice of a supportive wife that she always uses when she wants to end an argument without sounding nasty. Your dad has been thinking about this for a long time. This is the logical choice, she says. Grant adds, it's really about strategy. You know, leading the company into the next phase. He says this with the certainty of someone who would forget which wrench to give me if I asked. I let them speak. When they're done patting themselves on the back, I speak. I don't want to be the boss, I say. I want a stake, some ownership, and a say in how things move ahead. I'm the one that keeps the work going on the ground. You already know that. Grant gives a faux compassionate nod, as if he were comforting a child. Dylan, you're terrific at the physical side, but owning anything takes a different set of skills. It's not about you. It's really personal. This is a family business, I add, and Howard leans closer. Your role is important, but Grant has what it takes to run things long term. You'll still have a job here, and you'll get your share of the money after I'm gone. You don't need to worry. That phrase hits me harder than anything else. So, my whole future is simply wait until your dad dies. That's good to know. I keep my voice steady. So, I'm not close enough to the family to own something, but I'm close enough to be taught to be thankful. Howard seems unhappy, like I'm being ridiculous. Don't change anything I said. I'm doing what's best for the company. You're going too far. And that's when it all comes together. They don't think of me as someone who helped make this place. They think of me as the guy who does the labor they don't want to do. Not a companion, but a pair of hands. Grant ends with one last cocky statement. Dylan, you'll still be a member of the team. In just the proper amount. The right capacity is the one that makes him feel good. I guess I know where I stand when I stand up. Acre Howard says something about being professional, but I stop paying attention. They made the choice long before this meeting. I was merely there to gather information, like an employee getting a new schedule. A few hours later, while I'm getting ready to go, Marian walks out of the building as if she had been waiting for this moment. Dylan, sweetie, can we talk? I get ready. Moms only call you honey when they want to change your behavior. She moves closer, speaking softly. I know today was tough. I want to know how you feel. I nod because I want to see where this goes. She sighed and put her hand on my arm. I don't think you should take things so personally. Your dad knows what he's doing. He's making plans that are good for everyone. There it is. I'm already the unreasonable one after just 2 sentences. I say that I'm not taking it personally. I just want to be treated the same way you treat Grant. When she tries to set me straight, her face changes into that serene yet cutting look. You're acting too much. Your brother has some things that you don't. And that's fine. Stop making this hard for us and focus on your strengths. Not for you, but for us. Not for the company. For them. She keeps on going. You don't need to fight this. Just take the part your dad thinks is right for you. He has put more thinking into this than you have. She talks to me like she's giving me a lesson in life. Like she's the knowledgeable guide in a movie. But everything she says is rude and soft. I let her finish what she was saying. I don't cut in. I don't fight. When she stops talking, expecting me to say thank you, I just say, got it. She smiles like she repaired me. Okay. I knew you would get it. She is happy when she leaves. And I stand there, recognizing that this wasn't a talk. It was to fix things. Not for me, but for them. They weren't paying attention. They weren't thinking about anything. They were in charge of me and putting me back in the box that said does the work, doesn't question decisions. And that's when I finally ran out of tolerance with the whole thing. After talking to my parents, something inside me stopped working. Not dramatic, just the end. The next morning, I walked into the store, went right to my dad's office, and gave him my 2 weeks' notice. I like to do things the old-fashioned way when it comes to paperwork. I keep hard copies of everything I sign in a worn-out folder behind the seat of my truck. No words, no feelings, just here. This date will be my last day. Howard looked up from his computer like I had interrupted a really important deal instead of a crossword puzzle. He said, 2 weeks, with his eyebrows lifted. Are you sure about this? I answered, pretty sure. He leaned back and looked like he was thinking. If this is about money, I can give you a tiny rise. A small one. You deserve that. The amount he offered was so low that it almost made me chuckle. It wasn't a pay hike. It was extra money with a bow on it. I said, I'm fine. I made my choices. He shrugged as if losing me was the same as losing a paperclip. Okay, we'll be okay. Yes, I bet. Yes. It only took a few minutes for Grant to find out because he showed up in the doorway acting like someone had asked him to join the party. So, you're going? He said, arms crossed and full of himself. I didn't see that coming. He definitely saw that coming. I nodded. Yes. He clicked his tongue. I hope you have a plan. There aren't a lot of jobs in your field that are right for you. I said it again. My type. He smirked, having a good time. I'll handle the field work until we can find someone else. It shouldn't be too hard. I didn't bother to answer. When Grant took over the field, it was like a cat taking over air traffic control. The games began after that. By lunchtime, Grant had sent me a new schedule that was full of meaningless side jobs. Things that don't matter to anyone. Things that don't matter. Things he usually gives to random temp workers. There was one very clear thing that I saw. It was strange that none of my other projects involved Logan's site, since I had been in charge of that account for years. As I was leaving, I strolled by Grant's desk. He acted like he didn't see me and tapped on his keyboard as if he were dealing with a world crisis. The same thing happened the next day. Another change to the schedule. More busy work, more pointless tasks, and more attempts to keep me busy in places where no one important would see me. I had hardly stepped onto the main floor when I was called to fix a secondary unit that had been rusting since I was 19. Grant showed up behind me with a clipboard after 2 hours of that foolishness. He responded, good progress, as if he knew what he was looking at. You need to train our new employee tomorrow. Take it easy on him. He's relatively new. I looked back. Did you recruit someone new? Since when? Since now. Dad and I agreed it was time to add more people to the team. You can show him the ropes before you leave. In other words, keep Dylan occupied. Don't let him talk to the client at all. Before he goes, make him feel like he doesn't matter. I stared him in the eye. You want me to teach someone how to do a job that takes months to learn in only 1 week? Yes. He said, do your best. You know, be a team player. A team player. That's a good one. The new guy Austin was not dangerous. Lovely, but doesn't know what to do. He didn't know the names of the tools, how to use them, or how to be safe. The poor guy didn't even have gloves. He came to learn with a lot of energy, not knowing that Grant had thrown him at me like a sandbag. I didn't blame him. The problem wasn't him. I taught him what I could without wasting either of our time. Grant lingered a few times, seeming like he was checking in, but I could tell he was actually just making sure I wasn't working on a Logan project. What really got me was when I heard him tell another worker in the corridor, we'll be okay when Dylan leaves. He is not necessary. It never was. Just a worker in the field. He shouted it loudly enough for me to hear it. Grant in the past. Quiet digs weren't enough. He needed somebody to listen. I didn't stop, turn, or do anything. I just walked by him and kept going. But I added another mark to the already filled column that said reasons I'm leaving. The remainder of the week was the same. Assignments that didn't matter, mindless work, urgent jobs that no one cared about, and no access to the big client. Grant is changing my day around like a puzzle called How to Erase Dylan Before He's Even Gone. I stopped looking at the schedule on the 4th day. I just waited for Grant to come up with another way to sabotage me that morning. I did my job, clocked in and out, and stayed professional. But I was running out of patience, and Grant could tell, which probably made him feel strong. That was okay. Let him have fun. In a few more days, he wouldn't need me to micromanage him anymore. When Friday came, I sat in my truck for a minute before heading home and looking through the windshield at the store. One more week, that's all. I wasn't upset. I wasn't thinking twice about anything. People who were startled that I didn't want to break my back for them anymore were just being petty. Grant might keep playing the role of king of the empty throne. I was nearly halfway out the door. The same thing happened last week. Grant keeps adding things to my schedule, but I'm still performing the work because I don't want to look bad when I leave. I worked harder and cleaner simply to make sure Grant couldn't do anything while I was gone. Even though he was attempting to keep me busy with useless duties, I still had to stop by one of the places where Logan was checking on the equipment. I only got that job because the new guy, Austin, didn't know which end of a tool to hold yet. Even Grant knew that letting him use expensive equipment would lead to a lawsuit. Logan glanced at me like he didn't expect to see me when I stepped in. "Hey, you're really here," he said. "Grant said you were busy with other things." "I magically became free," I said. He raised an eyebrow, but didn't press. He got the tone right away. He moved out of the way so I could start working. Even though I was technically leaving, he treated me like the person he trusted most on the work, which is how I had been for years. He stood close with his arms crossed while I checked the panel and reset one of the units. He said, "I have to tell you something," as if it had been on his mind for a while. "We've been experiencing problems with your brother lately." I didn't do anything. I just waited for him to keep talking. There have been problems like delays with paperwork, inaccurate forms, prices that don't match what we agreed about, and scheduling that gets messed up. He's not the easiest person to work with. He said it in a nice way, but it was clear what he meant. Grant had been acting like he was better than everyone else. Logan let out a sigh. "Honestly, man, you're the reason this runs smoothly. Things get done right when you're here." He rubbed his jaw. "I've been sending Victor the downtime reports. He wants to know what it would take to bring this in-house." I tightened one bolt and didn't say anything for a second. The compliment didn't surprise me. Even though my family depended on my employment more than anyone else, I never heard them say that. "Yes," I finally said. "I try to keep things simple, and we notice," Logan remarked. "A lot more than you think." I nodded and closed the panel. Inside, that comment hit harder than I expected. Not emotional, just confirming what I'd known for years. I was the one holding the fieldwork together. Everyone saw it except the people who should have valued it most. Later that afternoon, I stopped by the shop to drop off a form. As I walked past the office, Grant's voice echoed from inside one of the rooms. He was on the phone, sounding authoritative the way he does when he wants to impress someone. "Dylan, he's just the labor guy," he said. "Not reliable long-term. Well, be better off once he's replaced." I stopped mid-step. "Just the labor guy. Not reliable long-term." He said it like fact. Like it wasn't coming from the man who couldn't fix a jammed unit if you handed him instructions and a flashlight. He didn't know I was there, and I didn't announce myself. I didn't jump in or start a fight. I just stood there for a moment, taking it in, letting it confirm what I already understood. That was who Grant was. Strip away the polished vocabulary, the leadership tone, the fake confidence. He needed me gone so he could pretend he was capable. I walked away without making a sound. When I stepped outside, I checked my phone and saw a forwarded message from another employee. It was a copy of a note Grant sent to a vendor. Dylan won't be a major point of contact anymore. He's more temporary labor than lead tech. Temporary labor after a decade keeping the whole place functioning. I didn't reply. I didn't confront him. I just filed it into the same folder in my mind where I stored every quiet insult he tossed my way over the years. The next morning at the client site, Logan and I were finishing up another small fix when he said, "So, you're really leaving, huh?" "Yeah," I said. "Just time for something else." He waited, maybe expecting a story, but I wasn't about to dump my family drama onto him. "No big reason," I added. "Just moving on." He looked at me for a moment, like he didn't fully buy the simplicity, but respected the boundary. "Well, sucks for us," he finally said. "You've been the difference between a mess and a working system more times than I can count." "Appreciate it," I said. He didn't say anything else right away. Just stood there with this thoughtful look, like gears were turning somewhere behind his eyes. Not in a dramatic way, just the expression of a guy putting together pieces he'd been noticing for a while. I wiped my hands on a rag, packed the tools, and headed out. As I walked toward my truck, I could feel it. The client side was paying attention more than my family ever did. They saw who did the work. They saw who kept things running. They saw who was actually worth something. And it was clear they weren't just going to shrug and say, "Good luck out there." There was something building, something shifting. I just didn't know yet how big. 2 days before my last shift, I got assigned to one more visit at the client's main facility. Probably another keep Dylan busy move from Grant. But joke's on him. This was one place he actually needed me because nobody else on our team could fix half the stuff in that building without calling me every 10 minutes. I walked in, toolbox in hand, expecting to see Logan waiting like usual. Instead, standing beside him was Victor Hale, his boss. Victor's the kind of guy who doesn't waste motion or words. Calm face, sharp eyes, pressed shirt even on dusty sites. He nodded once when I approached. "Dylan," he said. "Good timing." Logan gave me a little smile that told me this wasn't a normal visit. Something was brewing. Victor didn't start with small talk. "We've been having issues with this unit," he said, pointing to one of the high-end machines. "Walk me through what's going wrong." No greeting, no warm-up. Straight to the exam. Fine by me. I crouched down and opened the panel. "This model overheats when the alignment drifts even a little," I said. "And whoever last worked on it, probably someone trying to impress my brother, tightened the housing wrong." I tapped the misaligned bracket. "This causes the internal sensor to read false pressure spikes." Victor watched without reacting, hands in pockets. Logan stood behind him like a referee, trying not to influence the match. I loosened the housing, realigned the bracket, tightened it fast and clean. "There, sensor should read accurate now. If it doesn't, I'll recalibrate, but 9 times out of 10, this is the reason." And I hit the power. The machine hummed to life perfectly. Victor glanced at Logan. Logan nodded like, "See, this is what I was talking about." As I closed the panel, I added, "If Grant sent someone else for this, you'd probably have a 2-hour delay and an invoice blaming the manufacturer. So, congratulations. You got the upgraded service package today." Logan snorted. Victor actually cracked a small smile. Not big, but enough to say he appreciated someone who didn't dance around the truth. He stepped closer. "You know your work," he said simply. "That's the idea," I replied. Victor didn't rush. He let the moment settle like he wanted to be absolutely certain before he spoke again. "Then what would it take for you to run this in-house for us? No fluff, no flattery, just straight to the point." I wiped my hands on a rag. "Depends what you're offering." Victor raised an eyebrow. "Before I offer anything, I want your number, your conditions." But most people would freeze at that question, start stuttering or lowball themselves. I didn't. I'd been undervalued for years. I knew exactly what I was worth, so I listed it clean. I'd want a 3-year contract, locked pay. I want to choose the equipment because I'm not using trash. I want 2 people under me that I hire myself. And if I'm running this department, I want the title and the responsibility, not a pretend one. Victor studied me. And salary. I told him the number. Not exaggerated, not timid, just honest value. Logan's eyes widened slightly, but in the good way that he actually said it way. Victor didn't blink. He nodded, impressed. Reasonable. More reasonable than I expected, actually. He glanced at the line, humming. Every hour that line stalls, we burn 6 figures. I have a standing budget to fix that. HR will paper the details. I want to know if you want the chair. I'm not trying to be a billionaire, I said. Just match the work. He crossed his arms. Fair enough. Here's what I can offer you. Then he laid it out. A 3-year contract, pay well above the industry high end, full benefits, an office equipment budget under my control. 2 hires of my choosing, straight reporting line to him. No middle nonsense. It wasn't a job offer. It was a full blueprint for my own department. Logan looked excited, like he'd been waiting for this. Victor looked like a man who'd already decided, but wanted to give me space to think. I took a breath, not because I was overwhelmed, but because I wanted to answer the right way. I'll think about it, I said. Victor nodded once. Good. I don't want desperation. I want clarity. He wasn't testing me anymore. He was respecting me. We shook hands. Not over the deal, over the understanding that a deal could happen. As I walked out to my truck afterward, toolbox swinging at my side, I didn't feel shocked or confused, just steady. I had options now. Real ones, ones I earned. And even though I said I'd think about it, the truth was already settled in my chest. Yeah, I was taking it. I figured if I was going to take the job with Victor, I'd tell my family before anything was official. Not because they deserved the heads up, but because I'm not sneaky. I wanted it done clean, face to face. I picked the next morning to break the news. But the night before, Howard pulled me aside like he'd been waiting for his window. I was walking through the shop, grabbing a tool case when he called out, "Dylan, got a minute?" His voice wasn't the typical clipped, business-first tone. It was soft and careful, like he suddenly remembered how to sound like a parent. I spun around and said, "What's up?" He stepped closer, folding his arms like he was about to deliver wisdom. "I know things have been tense, but you need to understand something." He paused, giving the speech some dramatic weight. Family comes first. There it was. Not an apology, a command wrapped in sentiment. I didn't answer, so he kept going. You have to remember who gave you a job, who trained you, who made sure you always had a place here. His expression hardened. Your brother needs you. This business needs you. Don't forget that because you're upset. I stood there letting him talk, catching every line for what it was. Guilt, not understanding, expectation, not respect. Control dressed up as care. Nothing changed. Not an inch. No acknowledgement of what I'd built. No ownership of how they dismissed me. Just I owe them indefinitely. Because family. Anything else? I asked when he finally stopped. Howard blinked, thrown by my tone. No, I just wanted to say that before you do anything foolish. Right, I said. Good to know. I walked away before he could say more. Whatever I had left of maybe they'll understand evaporated right there on the concrete. The next morning, I went into the office early. Howard, Marianne, and Grant were already gathered. Like someone sounded the family meeting alarm. Good. Saved me time. I'm taking another job, I said. Direct. No room for misinterpretation. I've got an offer from the Brooks account. I'm accepting it. The reaction was instant. Howard's face went red. Absolutely not. Marianne gasped like I'd announced I was joining a biker gang. Dylan, you can't do that. After everything we've done for you. Grant just leaned back in the chair. That smug grin spreading. You do realize you signed a non-compete, right? There it was. He couldn't just let Dad yell. He had to add his own brand of manipulation. No, I didn't, I said. I checked my copies last night. Every agreement I've ever signed. Show me where it is then. What? Grant blinked. The non-compete. Show it to me right now. He froze. No folder, No document, no saved PDF, nothing. Because it didn't exist. I stepped closer. You made it up, didn't you? Grant's jaw tightened, trying to hold the lie together, but he had nothing. Silence did the job for him. Howard didn't miss a beat, though. Regardless of paperwork, you owe loyalty to this family. You can't just leave because you feel overlooked. I laughed once. Short, humorless. Overlooked. You told me the entire business goes to Grant because of tradition and a college degree that doesn't even apply to what we do. Marianne tried soft-voiced guilt again. Your father knows what's best. You shouldn't betray the family over something this emotional. Emotional, right? I looked at all three of them. Not angry, just done. You want loyalty without giving any. You want my work, my time, my silence, but none of my say. And now that someone else sees value in me, suddenly, you care. Interesting timing. Howard slammed a hand on the desk. You're being disrespectful. No, I said steady. I'm being clear. Grant finally snapped. You're leaving us to fall apart. Selfish. Completely selfish. I turned to him. The only person you care about is yourself, and you're terrified that when I'm gone, people will finally see what you actually bring to the field. His face twisted like he'd been punched, even though my tone never rose once. I grabbed my bag off the chair. I'm done here. Marianne reached out like she wanted to pull me back with words alone. Dylan, don't walk out in the middle of a discussion. This wasn't a discussion, I answered. It never was. I left before any of them could say anything else to me. There was no yelling or slamming of the door. They just left quietly, which they couldn't stop. I took out my phone and contacted Victor while standing next to my truck in the morning air. He said, "Good morning, Dylan." I said, "I'm in." "Good," Victor said. "Legal has already settled the issues. You don't have to worry about non-solicit or non-compete. Today, HR will send the material. Now is the time to pay you. There's no purpose in paying you to sit in an empty room." I woke up the first several mornings and didn't feel angry right away. Grant's workflow is not poisonous. No lectures about putting family first. I couldn't pretend that the store wasn't falling apart until I held it together. Just peace and quiet, coffee, and some space to breathe. When others asked how the downtime felt, I answered, "It's nice not to be annoyed before the sun comes up." It was simple but accurate. I was more than ready to get going again by the time the equipment eventually got there. It felt unusual to walk into the new building on my first day of work. Not too much, not too dazzling, simply typical in a way that I never received at the family business. The floors were clean, and the air conditioning didn't sound like it was fueling a jet. I had a parking place, so I didn't have to drive around the block fighting delivery vans for space. The area Victor set aside for me to work was open and tidy, unlike the Pierce shop, which was small and messy. And the office they gave me was little but strong. A desk, some storage, a door that really closed, and even a little fridge. It didn't make me feel starstruck. I glanced around and thought, this is how a place that cares about people works. No drama, no power games, and no one acting like they're doing me a favor by letting me live. Victor went over the last details with me. "It's your job," he said. "Build it however you want. Let me know if you need anything else." I finished the equipment order in the first week. Not the cheap things my dad always bought because it was good enough. I chose the things that worked, lasted, and would keep manufacturing going without needing continuous maintenance. Next on the list is employing 2 people. I talked to a small group of people. I followed what Victor urged me to do and trusted my gut. I chose Raymond Soto, who had been let off from another job but understood how to use his tools, and Corey Lane, who was younger but smart and eager to learn without acting like he already knew everything. They were on the payroll in just a few days. I taught them how to be leaders. Give them clear directions, don't act like you know everything, and don't treat them like pack mules. I taught them how to use the equipment, why some alignments were important, and how to avoid making mistakes that waste time. They learned it quickly. And after a month, the 3 of us were running the in-house configuration without any problems. Every day seemed easy. Work hard, address difficulties, and leave work without becoming angry. Crazy idea. I hadn't talked to my family since I left. No big news, no long texts, and no announcements. I didn't reach out, and they didn't either. It wasn't a grudge. It was calm. Something I hadn't had in a long time. Logan drew me aside during a walkthrough around 3 weeks into my new employment. He added quietly, "I thought you should know. Your dad and brother called Victor right after you left and tried to talk him out of employing you." I didn't even blink. That sounded just like something they would say. Fight to preserve control only after recognizing they lost it. "How'd Victor respond?" I asked, and Logan smirked. He hung up. That was it. One clean motion, phone down, conversation over. I didn't say much, but inside that confirmed every decision I'd made. I left a place that relied on manipulation and stepped into one that recognized competence. Later, I heard through my cousin Tessa that the Pierce business was downsizing. A couple smaller clients had closed their doors. And without the big one I now worked for, Howard had to lay off employees. Good people who didn't deserve the fallout. I felt bad for them. The rest, not so much. Decisions have consequences, especially when you bet everything on the son who can't fix a jammed sensor. The week before, Tessa told me they had lost 2 more accounts. About 2 months into my new role, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered out of habit. "Dylan," a familiar voice said. "Howard?" He talked to me like we hadn't just had a fight. "Been thinking," he began. "I want to offer you a partnership." I leaned back in my chair and muttered, "Uh-huh." "What kind?" he answered. "Well, we could work out a small share of ownership. Of course, you'd still have to report to Grant. You'd have a say in the decisions he made. I believe it's a fair deal." So, things stayed the same. A small piece of ownership, no power, remaining with Grant. A partnership that isn't real. I almost laughed, not because I was angry, but because I couldn't believe he thought this was tempting. I said, "Dad," in a calm voice, "you already choose your future. Stay with it." He didn't answer right away. He could have thought I would be thankful for the leftovers. Finally, he remarked, "This is a real offer." I said yes, so my answer is yes. I'm fine where I am. He tried one more phrase about family harmony, but I missed it. I respectfully ended the call and went back to work. That night, while I was finishing off papers in my office, I pondered about everything that had happened up to that point. Not in a dramatic way, just making the connections. I didn't break anything. I didn't let anyone down. I didn't poach clients or plan anything behind anyone's back. I basically quit taking on a position that kept me little. They decided how to treat me. I decided not to remain for it. That's all there is to it. The department I founded is doing better than I ever thought it would a year later. My team is strong. My name is on every project. And no one talks over me to get credit anymore. The Pierce Company. I heard that they can hardly keep the lights on. Grant is still acting like it's a transition time. And my parents are still acting like they didn't select this outcome. I don't dislike them. I don't owe them anything. That's all. It turns out that winning isn't what peace is all about. It's about finally getting away from folks who only cheer for you when you do the job. Please subscribe if you like this video. It definitely helps the channel and us get you more and better stories. Thanks.